I'll tell you something I'm doing this year that I think might help you a lot. And one of the things I find disturbing is there's so many videos out there, so many guys out there right now that are screaming about how hard things are. And here's the thing, don't get me wrong, I understand. Like I told you, if you've watched my other videos, I'm in the front, I'm on the front lines just as you guys are, right? I'm still on the front lines. I might have started a little while ago, but I'm still right on the front lines dealing with everything. All right. But I'll tell you a couple quick things. I'll tell you something I'm doing now that I think can really help me. I think could be a game changer because for me it's a game changer. But one thing I'd like to point out is, do you think this is the first generation that's dealing with adversity? And I know the argument. I get the argument because I agree with the argument. Well, the boomers, blah 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 blah, and I agree with that. Like I know what you're saying. I know what you're thinking. I agree with all that. Here's the thing. Before we get into everything, here's a quick thing. Like I always tell my kids, you got to deal with things the way they are. You got to if you don't like what's going on, it doesn't really matter. You got to deal with it the way it is. Hopefully things change or maybe you go a different route, but you've got to deal with it. What we're dealing with economically, what we're dealing with inflation, all that. Hey, it's not good. And believe me, I'm telling you, I do not like what's going on at all. But you got to deal with it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Go crawl under your bed and live in your parents' basement? I don't think you want to do that. You don't want to do that. It's not the way to live. Anyways, is I notice so many guys, and this isn't about getting married, not getting married, having kids, not having kids. Now, if you've watched my other videos, I've got 4 kids. I'm married. I've been married, 17 years. I'm 45, whatever. Okay. So it's not about, hey, you should get married, you should have kids, you should have kids. Do what you want to do, right? I think you're better off if you do, but not everyone wants to. But here's the point. People are running away, I think, from hard work. Like people don't want to work hard. And that's also a generational thing. I mean, young people always want to do things easier than harder. Okay, that's again, this is not unique to the younger generation. Every generation is like that. Um, I think now, though, I think it's a little more prevalent because you have social media that is able to spread a lot of messages that even in my generation, when I was coming up, ironically, we had, when I was first when I was first coming up, like in my early 20s, we had flip phones. I mean, that's the thing. So, smartphones is more of a, really, it's more of a recent thing. And then, obviously, all the social media, but these messages are spread. So we think that things should be easier. And then we look at people who, we perceive as they have easier lives, but also they're selling you something. They're selling you, this image, they're selling you a dream. And a lot of times they're selling you a course or a book or something, right? So they want you to believe that they figured it all out and they've got all the answers, and you can make $1 million and you shouldn't have to work hard. And I can tell you that's not real. That's not real life, right? Unless you're going to inherit, a bunch of money from your parents or a relative or something. But if you're like the rest of us, that's not happening. So here's my point. Here's where I'm getting at. For me, and I'll give you more specific examples. In hindsight, the years that I look back on that I smile and I'm happy about are the years that I worked really, really hard and accomplished something. And I'm not saying that, oh, well, I'm happy because I accomplished it. It's, I started off the year in certain years and I'm like, I'm going to do this, busting my tail, damn near kill myself, and accomplish a goal, right? And it doesn't have to be a huge goal. It could be a small goal, it could be a big goal, it could be a personal goal, it could be a financial goal, it could be, something with fitness. But you should do something, and it's still early enough in the year where you could do something from now to the end of the year. And like, for example, when I look back, to 2023 and 24, in those 2 years, I look back and I'm not happy with those years because yeah, I worked hard, but it was more, and there's a lot more to it, and maybe I'll go in depth another time on it, but a lot more was going on, and And I'm not happy about those years because I feel like I was not really going in a direction. Whereas let's say, for example, in 2020, 2021, I was on a you know 100 miles an hour. I was working towards a goal of mine, and it was fun, even though those were it was a stressful time. Is I worked hard, I worked a lot, made a lot of sacrifices, but I did what I want to do, and that's the same thing I'm doing this year now. Because I was frustrated with a few things, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do this year what I've done in the past. Because even though it's hard, and I'm telling you, it's hard every day. Every single day is hard because I'm pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing because I want to. There's things I want to accomplish this year that that I didn't accomplish in the last few years. That I feel like if I can accomplish this year, I'll be much better off. I'll be further ahead. And even though doing it at the time is difficult because you don't feel like it. You don't feel like, if you've done something, just in general, you don't feel like doing it every day. You don't feel like going to work every day. You don't feel like, if you work out, you don't feel like working out every day. You don't feel like, if you've got kids, you don't feel like, doing all the kid stuff every day. You don't feel like it, right? But here's the thing, the difference between, people who do, people who don't, or the people who do just do it anyways. They do it anyways. We'll wrap it at this. This is gonna be a little short video, but we'll wrap it at this. And I can't remember who said it, but I'm sure it's been said a zillion times. But I think it was one of the billionaires I read this, recently, talked about how you should, instead of having goals, you should have systems. And of course, I want to add my 2 cents in, but if a billionaire said that, I should probably just leave it at that. But what I do for myself is, now, of course, we listen to things very simplified, like a quote. Okay, instead of having goals, have systems. Right? Now, is that how this billionaire runs his life? No, of course he's got goals. Right? So I would say, know what you're doing. But the point of the quote is, instead of just saying, like, for example, I'm going to make X amount of dollars here, and just every day I'm going to make X amount of dollars, and doing affirmations and just work. The whole point of setting up a system is okay, if you're in a sales job and you've been at it for a year, a couple of years, or whatever it is, and it's working, and I'll cover a couple other different scenarios like this, but like a sales job, if it's working and you say, okay, well, I need to double my income, to accomplish my goal, whatever that goal is, well, then the system would be, well, you might have to double the amount of calls you make, or you have to double the amount of people you see, or you might have to, go to more networking events. If it's a goal that you're working out, then if you've already had progress in the gym, or maybe you didn't have progress in the gym, maybe you read you see what Jay Cutler, that's a bodybuilder in my day. Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman. I know there's different bodybuilders now. I don't follow the current guys, but those are guys from my generation, and they're a little bit older now, but you can still get their workouts. And I'm sure their workouts are not much different from the guys now. You follow their workout, you do it, whatever they I think they do it 5-6 days a week. You'll see results. There's no quite, you're gonna see results. Because guys, this is the thing. You also got to understand this. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, yes, technology is changing, the economy is changing, inflation changes the game. There's a lot of things going on, but it's like you also don't have to reinvent the wheel. And are things changing the next 5 or 10 years? 100%, absolutely, and they always have. But here's the thing: as of right now, get to work and do what you need to do, because you might say, "Well, AI is going to come and take all these jobs." Guess what? It hasn't yet. It hasn't yet. So get to work and do what you need to do, and that's the point. We'll wrap it at that. All right, talk to you later.